Arizona's ties to Mexico are geographically and culturally obvious. Economic ties seem obvious too, yet they're evolving in ways that may surprise.
For every good that comes across the U.S. border from Mexico, so quote-unquote made in Mexico, 40 cents of every dollar, so 40% of that product was actually made in the United States by U.S. workers.
I guess it's too early to really see the impact we're having, if it's going to be monetary, if it's going to be jobs created, or amount of companies being here.
Crossing the border for business. It's Arizona Week.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, your moderator, Michael Chiha.
Arizona trade with Mexico is on the rise, $12 billion at last count. With the potential for it to be much more, state business and civic leaders are focused on strategies for growing it. A forum last week sponsored by the Morrison Institute for Public Policy at Arizona State University revealed both the potential and the work ahead. Christopher Conover was there, and he spoke with several participants, starting with Shannon O'Neill, a Latin American policy expert with the Council on Foreign Relations.
First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us.
My pleasure.
When you spoke with the Morrison Institute a few minutes ago, one of the things you started talking about, which I think a lot of people may not realize, is the changes in Mexico, the changes in the economy over the last few decades, the changes in demographics. The Mexico a lot of people think about is a very old economy that isn't the reality anymore.
You know, what's fascinating is this country to our south that we know little about has really transformed over the last few decades. And so it's gone from a very closed economy dominated by oil and commodities to one of the most open in the world, today dominated by manufactured goods. It's gone from a place of have and have-nots, of very rich and very poor, to one that now also has a growing middle class, some 50, 60 million people that fall into this category. And it's also gone from a place that was linked to the United States, but to one that is today really integrated to the United States economically. And so the back and forth of production, of exports and imports on both sides is important to companies, but increasingly to workers on both sides of the US and Mexico border.
When you talk about that changing economy, some of that comes with a changing demographic in Mexico. You just mentioned a growing middle class. That's changing the relationship, or could be changing, especially the economic relationship between our two countries.
This has been one of the big changes in Mexico. Over the last 15 years, we've just seen the blossoming of a middle class. And so these are people that own their own house, they own their own car, they own every modern appliance. Many of them send their kids to public or to private schools. And this is a change. This is a consumer culture that's rising in Mexico. You see it in aggregate GDP numbers and the like, but you see it just in the day-to-day, the way Mexicans live. And for US companies and others, it's been a very profitable source. That they've gone down to Mexico, whether it's Walmart or Costco or Starbucks or the Coffee Bean or all sorts of industries, apparel companies and the like, they've made big profits in Mexico selling there to this growing middle.
And this growing middle class, as often happens with a growing middle class, we're seeing a change in families, which then begins to affect the economy and immigration in this case to a degree.
Yeah, one of the big changes is not just their consuming power, which is a big change, but it's just the nature of family. And so you look back 40 years ago, the average family size had 6, almost 7 kids per family. And today it's just over 2, really the same rate as the United States. And so these are smaller nuclear families, and they're also with fewer kids and more disposable income. They're investing more in their kids, and particularly they're investing in education. So as I mentioned, many are going to private school, but they're also just overall staying in school longer. The number of years a Mexican child stays in school is double what it was 25 years ago. And so that is changing the nature of society and the way Mexicans think about family, but also think about their future.
When people think about U.S.-Mexican economic relationships, they think about I think very often low-level manufacturing, as you said in the 80s, the import of oil. When we see made in Mexico now, that actually has a different meaning than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago, especially economically.
I mean, the most dynamic sectors today in Mexico are manufacturing, but they're advanced manufacturing, not low level. So these are autos, cars, these are aerospace, these are flat screen TVs, these are computers. It's much more high level industry that's going to Mexico, and particularly it's linking to the United States. So it's a very different type of industry, but it's also a very different workforce on both sides of the border. The skill set is much higher and much more sophisticated, and then can support this growing middle class.
And you said made in Mexico has a higher percentage of made in the U.S. actually than it used to in many other importing countries that we trade
one
with.
of the very little known facts, but really vitally important, is just how linked our economies are. So for every good that comes across the US border from Mexico, so quote unquote made in Mexico, 40 cents of every dollar, so 40% of that product was actually made in the United States by US workers. And that is far above any other country. You look at China or Brazil or the European Union, it's 4%. And even Canada, our other NAFTA partner, it's 25%. So Mexico is by far and above the best partner, not just for US companies, but for US workers, because we make things together.
So what do we as the U.S. and we as Arizona do to further this trade economically and politically? What needs to be done?
Well, economically, across the US, what we can do is make it easier for things to come across the border. Our real goal should be to make it easier for good trade to come, even as we try to stop bad trade that goes across. And so whether it's opening up more border crossings, expanding the ones we have, whether it's harmonizing regulations to make it easier so you fill out one customs form when you need to cross the border, or you do one set of tests to make sure the product meets the actual requirements, all of those things are important. For Arizona in particular, in many ways it's time for Arizona to catch up. So you look at Texas or you look at California, other border states, they have invested in their border. They have seen the benefits of the trade or the hope of the trade and are trying to make it a reality. In Arizona, there's some steps forward that it's made, but probably fewer than its neighbors. So if Arizona wants to take advantage of the $500 billion worth of goods that go back and forth, $500 billion, if it wants to have a bigger piece of that pie, it needs to step up in terms of infrastructure, in terms of workforce, in terms of education, all of those things to make it as attractive for this back and forth.
I'm sure somebody watching this will say infrastructure, okay, better roads, better port crossings, that makes sense. But education, how does education on this side of the border help drive trade with Mexico?
So the future for Arizona's economy, but also for Mexico, is advanced manufacturing. It's industries that are innovative. It's research and development. It's high-end services. They're the type of jobs that support a middle class, not low-wage working. That's what we all want for the future. But for Arizona to attract those companies, and for Mexico, it's important to have an educated workforce. You need the people who can work in the auto company, who can work in aerospace, who can work in these new types of industries. And so something for Arizona to think about is not just to go this road alone, but to think about working with Mexican partners and to build a critical mass of the right types of people, the right kind of workforce together, so you can attract the next Apple, right? The next Intel, those companies here to this part of the country rather than another part of the country in the United States or another part of the world.
We can't talk about border economics or anything, especially in Arizona, without talking about immigration. We have immigration reform probably dead for the year, it appears, in Washington. We had 1070 here in Arizona that's still working its way through the courts and how it will be enforced. Mexico City, the capital, obviously has their opinions on this, but from a business standpoint, on the ground, regular people, how much do all of these political arguments affect the ability to have trade and an economic relationship?
Well, one of the costs of the challenges of immigration and the lack of reform and change on our side has been in the bilateral relationship. And leaving aside what the final outcome should be and how to resolve these issues, which we all know is a difficult challenge, the tension surrounding the lack of reform and many of the debates that become quite hostile on both sides of the aisle in many ways those affect bilateral relations. And so if you could resolve these issues and take some of that tension out of the discussion, then we could really focus on the other issues that are of vital importance, starting with these economic issues. And you'd have a cleaner slate to have these discussions about how to make the most of the potential on both sides.
All right, well, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thanks, it was great. Nice to be here.
State and local economic development specialists are pinpointing trade with Mexico as a key component of business growth. We have two reports. First, Christopher Conover spoke with Sandra Watson, President and CEO of the Arizona Commerce Authority, followed by my conversation with Juan Francisco Padrés, the City of Tucson's international trade specialist.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us to talk about Mexico-Arizona trade. We heard from Dr. O'Neill about kind of the big picture. When it comes to trade between Mexico and Arizona, what are we doing to increase that? Obviously, Mexico is our closest neighbor.
Right. Well, the Arizona Commerce Authority is the state's leading economic development organization. Our focus is to strengthen Arizona's economy through quality job creation. The Arizona-Mexico relationship, trade relationship, is extremely important to our economy. We are implementing several new programs to ensure that Arizona businesses are connected with businesses in Mexico and that there is a trade flow of business from both areas. We have a STEP program, which is the State Trade and Export Promotion Program, which provides assistance to small businesses in Arizona, opportunities to export to Mexico. We're also working very closely with our partners at the Arizona-Mexico Commission, the Arizona Department of Transportation, and the Arizona Office of Tourism to ensure that we are developing a comprehensive strategy to promote opportunities in Mexico.
You said something interesting there that a lot of people may not think about when they think about Arizona-Mexico or U.S.-Mexico trade. You talked about small businesses doing business in Mexico, not necessarily Mexican businesses coming north, which is important, but there is a lot of trade going south in Arizona.
Absolutely. There's an incredible amount of trade going between our two regions. What's important to note is that Arizona's strategic location is an advantage for businesses. Businesses who are looking for a lower cost of doing business can locate in Arizona, have a presence also in Mexico, and share resources and opportunities to advance their businesses. The fact that we are also next to the largest, one of the largest economies in the world, with California, the 9th largest economy, provides us with an incredible opportunity. So when we talk about Mexico, California, and Arizona, Arizona is uniquely positioned to be working with Arizona businesses to export to Mexico, but also provide opportunities in the supply chain in California as well. But also working with businesses both in Mexico and California to do business here in Arizona.
The Commerce Authority kind of straddles that line between business and government. What do you hear on the business side that the government needs to be doing, the Arizona government needs to be doing to help business, be it trade to the south or get more trade coming north? What are you hearing from your business partners?
Many businesses are looking for opportunities, and so we hear from businesses that they are interested in doing business but don't quite know how to do business. And so what we're hearing from businesses is, can we show them a pathway to success in working in that market? We have implemented several programs to do that. We're working very closely with industry to ensure that they understand the opportunities in Mexico for those businesses to succeed.
And I guess the converse to that is, what are you hearing from your government partners that you need to tell business that business may not understand when it comes to doing trade, as you straddle that line between both business and government?
Right. Well, I think that Arizona and government can provide, again, the connection to the resources. And so what we share with businesses is that it's better to have a plan. It's better to do the research and to understand the potential market opportunities. We can help businesses do that so that they can excel as they are looking for new markets, new customers, suppliers, and opportunities within Mexico.
Is there a point where you walk into your office one morning and you look through all the information you have and you say, that's it, we got it, whatever it is now working, we have the level of trade that we want to have? Is there a measurable point, or is this just one of those moving targets and it's hard to define to know when we've had actual true success on this?
I think that the markets are constantly evolving, and so the opportunities for Arizona will continue. So I don't ever believe that we're done. I do believe that we continuously have opportunities to expand opportunities within Mexico. And so we will continue to work with businesses on both sides to ensure that businesses understand the opportunities of locating in Arizona while connecting with businesses in Mexico.
Is there a particular type of business that we want to be doing with Mexico, or is it whatever business wants to do, we will help facilitate that?
Our focus is on export-based industries. Export-based industries do provide a higher quality job for Arizonans, and so our focus is working with export-based businesses. Generally, they are in the technology area, but not solely in technology. So we do work with businesses who are looking to export their products.
All right, well, thanks for sitting down with us.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Joining me now to discuss what Tucson is doing to build cross-border trade is Juan Francisco Padrés, the city's recently appointed international trade specialist. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Michael.
You've been on the job 9 months.
That is correct.
How do you build this position from scratch?
The department didn't exist prior to me being hired. Economic development, the city recently added the economic development department. My position was just added this February. So it was starting pretty much looking at where the prior work was left off. There was an economic development department back in 2005, 2006, and start building relationships in essence. Starting to get the word out that the department exists, that my position exists, talking to business owners, different government officials from the different municipalities, on both sides of the border.
Now, the Brookings Institution recently came out with a study that said Tucson's trade with Mexico totaled last year around $638 million. We spoke about that before we came on camera, and you said you thought that sounded a little low. Do you have any reckoning of what it might be?
Well, from what I've read, exports to Mexico are in the $6 billion from the state of Arizona. That's from the Arizona Commerce Authority, so it's a little low, and I was actually shocked with the number. I think if you put in tourism and the different sales from the retail sector, which are in the over $1 billion, that alone is more than that. So I think that number might be a little low from what I've seen.
Are you setting goals for what it ought to be or where you want to take it to in the next few years?
At this time, it's a little difficult to set a monetary goal on that. I guess it's too early to really see the impact we're having, if it's going to be monetary, if it's going to be jobs created, or amount of companies being here. So I think within the next couple of years, we'll be able to better determine that.
You did a study, or you did some research to determine what Tucson's strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities are in relation to trade with Mexico. Obviously, geography is a strength and culture is a strength. What other strengths did you discover?
Well, as you mentioned, we did hold a SWOT analysis with the different departments in the city. And as you did mention, logistics and transportation is one of our key strengths. Where I-19 meets I-10, there's the Union Pacific line that crosses here. So we're very well situated to really leverage our transportation capabilities. We have a Port of Tucson, which is the only privately owned business of its kind in the entire western coast. That means we can actually import containers from China and have customs clear them here in Tucson.
And those containers would presumably be coming through Mexico from the port at Guaymas?
We could do both. We could have them coming from Long Beach with a destination to either Mexico or continue further into the United States, or we can have them coming from Mexico, having been docked at the Port of Guaymas. At the Port of Guaymas, then coming through Tucson. So that is a huge asset that we have that would really solidify our position as a logistics hub. We have an international airport. Unfortunately, right now we don't have international flights to Mexico. So that's actually putting us in a tough spot, but we're really working with the airport authority to get that going.
And so would that be on the side of the shortcomings? We need more international flights?
Correct.
What other shortcomings do you see?
Well, the two main ones is the lack of air service to Mexico. That's imperative. If we're really going to go sell Tucson, not only just to our neighbors down in the south, to Sonora and Sinaloa, if we really want to be a serious contender in Mexico City and Guadalajara, where the vast majority of the Mexican GDP is, we need to have air connectivity. Right now, you need to fly from Tucson to Phoenix to Dallas. It's just not feasible. If you're a business owner and you want to have business in Tucson, I mean, you're looking, I mean, if you're a business owner in Culiacan, you have the option of flying to Tijuana, which is there in San Diego. You have the option of flying to Ciudad Juarez, which can take you to El Paso. There's no option to come to Tucson. It goes straight to Phoenix. So that puts us in a bind. The other one is the slow crossing times at the Nogales border, at both the DeCancini and Mariposa port of entry. We need the federal government just spent, I think, around $230 million in the Mariposa port of entry, which is a huge step to alleviate the concerns with border crossing, but it needs to be staffed. And in addition to that, there are several bottlenecks that happen on the Mexican side as well, which we need to address. Mayor Rothschild went in July to Mexico City, where he sat with the Secretary of Transportation in Mexico and addressed that. And they've committed to spending money to build the infrastructure in the Mariposa port of entry. So as long we need to keep trade flowing quickly through the Nogales port of entry, because Texas is a competitor of ours. And if it's faster to go through Texas, trucking companies will use their ports of entry instead of ours.
Juan Francisco Padrés, International Trade Specialist for the City of Tucson. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
An educated workforce with attention to the key needed job skills is the basis for growing the economy. Christopher Conover addressed the topic with Stephen Seleznow, President and CEO of the Arizona Community Foundation, at last week's Morrison Institute Forum.
Thanks so much for sitting down with us. We began the morning talking about immigration, and then we moved to your panel with education, and the two actually cross to a degree, immigration and education. Mm-hmm. How do these two cross? And then we'll get into funding about education.
Well, they cross only in the way that with immigration you have new groups of students who are here, who have either arrived here recently or whose families have arrived and they're now school age. They come with different sets of needs, important learning styles to understand. Often they come, certainly in Arizona, speaking English as a second language, not their native language or not the language spoken at home, which presents a unique set of challenges for schools and teachers. They're not insurmountable challenges by any sense. And America has always dealt with this issue going back to the great immigrations of the past. So we know how to educate all young people. The question is, how are we going to do it? What are the investments that we need to provide each child with a quality education? And how do we put that system in place?
So I guess I have to turn that question back to you. How do we provide this education, be it through funding and through infrastructure and things like that here in Arizona?
Well, I think often the conversation about funding gets around to what's the average we spend per student. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think the earlier that you can get to a young child with a high quality education, high quality support, it's clear from the research the greater success they're going to have later on in school life, and the ability to get a job where they can receive a livable wage, where they can go into post-secondary education, where they can go to community college or four-year university. You want to expect that for every child, to create those opportunities. So if we start at early childhood, and we know much of a child's brain development occurs between birth and 5, what kinds of interventions are we doing to help develop that capacity in children, that native capacity, no matter where you're from. And a recent study and many recent studies talk about vocabulary development early on. What can we do with this population of students to help build that vocabulary so when they enter kindergarten, they're ready to learn. They have a large amount of vocabulary. They've been exposed to a lot of language. Between kindergarten and third grade, how do we make sure that they're reading fluently? What are the teaching strategies, the kinds of texts, the materials and technology that we can use to accelerate children, particularly those who may be coming from families where English isn't spoken at home, but where with the right intensive immersion in English, those children will learn very quickly. And I've seen over the years of working in education, a child who comes into an elementary school classroom with absolutely no English, by the end of the school year is absolutely fluent. It is very possible for all kids, and we have to build the kind of system that accepts those kids, sets high expectations for them, provides them with the right kind of instructional program so that they can be successful.
This whole conference has been about looking to the future, looking to Arizona's future. Are we Arizona, setting ourselves up for that type of successful education future, or are we missing something?
Well, I think we're missing something right now. We really need to focus on the data around how well our kids are actually performing. Fortunately, Arizona is focused on setting and has approved the setting of much higher standards, which will give us a better sense of just how well educated our kids are and enable us to build a curriculum that will raise the performance of all of our students and make our students not only competitive in Arizona, but competitive in the United States and competitive globally, because that's where the economy is. It's a global economy. Every American student, every Arizona student needs to be ready to compete in that. So I think we need to look at what are the investments we need, what are the programs we need to invest in, not how much do we raise the average amount we spend, but what are the best programs we can invest in to raise performance for every child, whether you're a gifted child, whether you're a child with special needs, whether you're an English language learner.
All right, well, thanks for sitting down with us.
My pleasure.
That's our program for Friday, November 29th, 2013. Next Friday, we look at efforts to build an early childhood education regimen in the state. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.